welcome back to Residue Conscious. My name is Thomas Brown.
Irvin Bryant
Shout out to DJ for making our beat.
at DW Made That on social media.
And follows on social media.
That's at Kinda Woke on Instagram and Twitter. Relatively Conscious on everything else. Like, follow, share, subscribe. Hit us in the comments, replies, mentions, all that. And let us know, does American history, the story of America as an independent state, does it begin in 1619 or 1776? Now, if you're uninitiated, this may sound bonkers because, it's a very clear answer. I wasn't in social studies. I wasn't asleep. But it's a question that we're asking in America today, and we're going to discuss it based on a recommended comment from my own pastor. Shout out Reverend Dr. Darren Moore. He wanted us to discuss it. We haven't discussed it as of yet because it's so hairy. But when we get the request, we got to answer the call. So if you have a topic that you would like to recommend, go ahead and hit us in the comments, retweets, replies, mentions, and all of that, and let us know what you'd like us to discuss next in a relatively conscious way. But let's get to the topic at hand. 1619 Project. Tony, what even is that?
So 2019 marked the 4th year anniversary of Africans arriving in America, kidnapped Africans, let me say that. Yeah, arriving in North America. Actually, the continental United States.
Yes. Yeah.
They had been in the Caribbean for a while, just dying by the thousands in sugar plantations. Haiti, Dominican Republic, Cuba, the Virgin Islands, all those places. But anyway, they arrived in North America in
1619. Some pirates sold, I believe, 7 or so. Something like 20. That. Slaves. 20, thank you.
20 slaves, yeah.
Very wrong. Yeah. 20 slaves, enslaved people to Virginians.
Yes.
And so it began.
And so the idea was Nicole Hannah Jones.
NHJ, not a fun acronym, but or initialization, but it'll do. Nicole Hannah Jones, New York Times writer, making a project. What is it?
Yeah. Do? And so it's in the New York Times Magazine. Mm-hmm. And so it's a collection of essays. The first essay, her essay, basically says we should recenter our discussion on the founding of America around the year 1619, not 1776, because everything that is America, what it is, her exact comments on the Breakfast Club is from capitalism to sugar to geography to why there's so much traffic in Atlanta, is centered around slavery and slaves being here. Not the Declaration of Independence and not our democracy. We created a slaveocracy, and that is our founding achievement, basically.
Yes. Foundation.
And so the other essays, one of them deals with the sugar industry. One of them deals with King Cotton, that being in Texas, but the cotton industry. They make economic arguments that slavery was much more important to America being the economic juggernaut it is today. They make arguments that the Revolutionary War is fought about slavery and not about taxation. And so this is what it is, New York Times Magazine. And then it's become also curriculum in some schools.
Okay. So big historical journalistic narrative on the quadricentennial of Black people in the U.S.
Yes.
Or what would become the U.S. And that sounds like a big deal, kind of like Roots, right? Alex Haley's Roots.
Yes.
It's fictional as a narrative, but it's meant to, be symbolic and representative of the roots of, Afro-Americans in general. And it follows Roots, the book, follows us from the coast of West Africa to 1960s America when the book came out.
Yes.
So the question is, when you're comparing it to like these monumental works, because Roots is heavily criticized, Alex Haley as a person is heavily criticized, is it good? Is the 1619 Project, have we done better than the past with these grand narratives? Have we faithfully represented this great amount of time, all these great issues? Is it good?
Well, it's an undertaking that is almost impossible to do to everybody's to where everybody's going to be happy. It's almost like trying to remake Lion King. It's just kind of like, I don't know.
It was a failure.
Yeah. Can you do that? Like, you can bring in Beyonce herself, and people are still going to be like, it's not for me. I want to say the beginning of the first essay or the first write up for it says it's a thought experiment. Basically, it's a question. It's a critical thought exercise in the idea of what if our founding, what if we recenter our ideal of our country around slavery. And in that, I think it is good in doing that. If you just think of it as a thought experiment, just an exercise, just a question, I think it does a pretty good job with that. So like almost like a professor who walks into a classroom, it's 1301 history, 1302 history maybe. But if I walk to the classroom, I put on the board 1619, and I was like, this is the founding United States of America. And I open the class up for questions. And people are like, what are you talking about, professor? Well, let me tell you why I believe this to be true. And I just get you to like really grapple with the ideal. I know it's going to make you mad. I know you're not going to say what I'm talking about, but I want you to expand your horizons. In that, I think it does a good job. Everything else afterwards that it tries to do is where it fails.
So that's the Tony review. Solid. Yeah. Let's talk critical reception. And we're going to start with the positive because we've already been rather critical ourselves.
Yeah.
So, because of course, with a project this big and this serious, some people are going to like it. Or if the work is put in, and I believe work was put in, just like with Roots. People love it. People hate it. Who loves it and why?
Yeah. So, but there's those who like that, like Connor West, Michael Dyson, I think loves it all together, which is a comment about Mike Dyson's abilities.
Keep going.
There are those who are politicians, artists, of all types, right? Mm-hmm. Most of them love it for what it has to say. Most of them love it because that, as they would say, I never saw 1776 dealing with me. Mm-hmm. So as a Black person, if I'm them, they're saying 1776 never really gave me any fire in my bones. But 1619, that's why I feel like, really is what we should be talking about, basically. It receives even more great raving reviews as we do 2020 Race Reckoning, and so it gives even more. I think I literally saw a poster that said teach 1619 in schools at the march, So there are people who love it for the fact that it shakes the table, as they use the word, right? It shakes the table. It forces America to reckon with something that it doesn't want to reckon with. And that's their criticism. That's their love of it. And it shakes the table so much that the Pulitzer Prize people gave it their stamp of approval.
Right. And so the Pulitzer Prize, not to like talk down to anyone.
Yeah.
It is one of the highest honors of any literary work or artistic work, because they do, give Pulitzer Prize to a number of different, like aside from Nobel, I guess, that's internationally like recognized as excellence par excellence. But at the same time, Pulitzer Prize is not, and the Nobel Prize is a little political. It's human beings handing out these awards. So the Nobel Peace Prize has been given out to right now, and this is just off the top of my head. This is not, I haven't researched this. It could be worse, but 2 Nobel laureates are overseeing state-sanctioned, what could be classified as genocide. One is a bona fide genocide in Myanmar.
Yes.
And one that is questionable, but is definitely a hot conflict in Ethiopia.
Yes.
And both of their presidents, right, and one is deposed president because the genocide got out of hand, but are Nobel laureates, right? So international excellence in peace and in high ethics and artistic expression and research, etc. Because we have, Nobel laureates like Martin Luther King, Einstein, thank you, Barack Hussein Obama, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you got the star-studded list, and then you got some knuckleheads. Same thing with the Pulitzer. Scott Joplin, father of ragtime jazz, father of American music. Also Kendrick Lamar. I love Kendrick, but it gets a little funny as we get into the contemporary awards.
Yeah.
So we handed out the award 2020 Summer Reckoning. It's popular. It's popping. Everybody's feeling the shift in the narrative, recentering Black people in the mix. I love Afro-American history. What's to be mad about? We're gonna start with good faith criticism,
yes,
and then we'll go to the bad faith. So the bona fide academic review, or any review, like even journalistic. I read it and I have some thoughts.
Yeah, so they're just like, okay, you're about to build a house on this, and I got us these cracks right here are a problem. You can't build off of this. And so I'm gonna just touch on two of them. One being Revolutionary War, the other being about slavery itself and the industry of slavery. Mm-hmm. So the Revolutionary War, the argument that is that it was about slavery. That's why the founding fathers chose to leave the British. It's just wrong. Like, it's not someone. So the New York Times went back and wrote a revision. Is that the word for it? They revised it, and
or retraction, maybe
retraction. They said some of the founding fathers. They're saying all the founding fathers, but you said all at first, and so yeah, that's a problem. John Adams was a blatant, where don't be abolitionist. He was against slavery, and he did not like the institution of slavery at all. He, I don't think, owned slaves at any point in time. His son, John Quincy Adams, hated slavery so much that after he became president, he went back into the House of Representatives just to piss off the South, the Southern representatives. But anyway, like that's just not. It's a bad faith argument. That's why we left England. The main thing being no taxation, representation. The other thing being that I want to be British. I'm Thomas Jefferson. I am George Washington. I am a general myself. But yet you think I'm a hillbilly. And so it's like some show called Beverly Hillbillies, right? Basically, George Washington pulls up in England and he's like, "Hey, I'm one of y'all." And they're like, "No, you're not. You're a hillbilly. Yeah. Get out of my face," basically. And so that leads up to the Revolutionary War. The second argument being about how slavery, how profitable it was, right? And so it's so weird because slavery is bad. Like, can we just call it bad and leave it at that? But the argument is that capitalism is evil, and it's evil because of most of it American capitalism comes from slavery, basically. It's argument. And they try to argue that slavery was like our main economic driver.
Yeah.
But like cotton was maybe was 5% of the economy at that point in time, which is like the house building economy. So like if we got rid of the house building economy, it'll be an issue. Building houses is not what America is known for. That's not what we stamp our flag on, right? Yeah.
By the way, that's arms. The answer there would be guns.
Yeah. The second thing being, I don't know, this is all very weird how they talk about this because I've already made my whole understanding of the process being great. But if you got black and white, this is where this helps. But the good whites of the North can argue that, well, slavery was going to die. And the reason why the South lost the war was because they couldn't modernize. And that's why the union's good because they didn't have slavery. But the union was okay with slavery and it could have continued. They would have kept looking the other way. They
just didn't want to grow the institution.
Yeah. But all that is just the graphs, everything, the economic arguments just don't work very well. That you could make an argument that slavery is bigger than they've made it to seem. Make an argument that it could have continued, but some of these arguments don't work.
Okay, so
that's a good faith criticism, by the way.
The good faith criticism is that the historicity, to use the technical term, the historical truth, the level of rigor in the research,
right?
When you talk about cause and effect, major factors, when you get into those things that are verifiable and quantifiable, it's shaky. When you talk about your feelings and your personal histories and your families and, what it's like to be Black in America, good stuff.
Yeah.
But when you get into cause and effect, person, place, thing, history, not 100%.
One problem people have is that it's the New York Times. And so you made this mistake and you're in the New York Times. You are the pinnacle of journalism.
Right.
And you made this mistake. As a child, I watched a TV show called Liberty Kids. It's on PBS. Covers Revolutionary War. The reason why I bring that up is because on the show, they talk about the fact that the southern states were more loyalists to the crown.
Yeah.
Mainly because they had they had to have protection from the Spaniards who are right in Florida. And so George Washington's whole war strategy is that I can't go south. And so that makes the whole concept leaving the British because of slavery out the window. If you're 12 and you watch that series, you kind of know that's a BS argument off top. So how did this pass snuff at the New York Times?
I mean, it meant that and many other things. Yeah. Like you said, the convictions, and this is all very well documented, the convictions of any particular founding father, they align, uniformly, universally on representation, taxes, autonomy, the self-rule, etc., popular sovereignty. Mm-hmm. These are all, the American things. Slavery, a very American thing, but not a universally American thing, obviously, wasn't universal then. Like you said, if anybody's journal, anybody's documents, they do not match, not even in the mind of the author of the Declaration of Independence. He himself, a very special character, Thomas Jefferson was.
Yeah.
But within himself wasn't sure how to exactly deal with this slavery question. And so it's not, Thomas Jefferson did not deem it something worth fighting over. And he is, number 2, number 3 founding father, right? Yeah. If we're making a top 5. So, just not a verifiable narrative. And that's the core initial narrative behind justifying 1619 as the start date. As a thought experiment, again, very interesting, very fun. But if you're going to make the claim that, yes, this is what establishes America, this is what we start with, I don't know.
Yeah. And so the bad faith criticism.
Yes.
Is that it's anti-American, it's propaganda, it's teaching our kids to be leftist, it's teaching us to hate America. Where found this nation was founded on the ideals that these people have these inalienable rights for life, living in pursuit of happiness. That's the founding of America, and everything else miss me with it. It's, I don't know, if it feels like it's almost as if you came into Texas and said, brisket ain't it. And they're like, I'm not fit to hear this slander. I'm not fit to listen to this.
Hands. Show me them hands.
How dare you? And so like that's what they felt like she said to them. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Going, that's not what she was trying to say. But that's the bad faith criticism that this is, and it's anti-white. Everybody who's white is evil. That's what this is trying to say.
Okay. So why would I freak out though? Because here's the thing. So, high praise, high criticism, or low criticism, I guess.
Yeah.
But how is this even important? Like, this is a New York Times Magazine, a publication. I'm talking about the vast majority of Americans have never touched one. Like, not the New York Times paper, which most of us have not touched.
Yeah.
The physical paper, or even looked up the website, to be honest. Maybe I saw the headline on Twitter and I scrolled past and liked, but probably didn't open it up. And New York Times Magazine definitely didn't do that. How in the world is this so important to the country?
And so I can't find the clip, but I've almost heard it was Newt Gingrich or somebody of that, Mike Huckabee of that ilk, who, when it first came out, was like, this is great for Black people, and that's all it is. And that's just, leave it at that. And
Black history.
Yeah, but it's Black history. It's not American history. It's Black history. Read it. It's good for y'all. But then he kind of ends the interview like, but don't take us any further than that. And they heard that and they were like, bet I'm gonna just do exactly opposite what you said. And so this is her claim, Nicole Hannah-Jones's claim. One time she says, 1619 projects being taught in every state in 80 cities. These teachers in these cities have fought to get this curriculum placed in their schools. And so 1619 project went from being a magazine project to a commercial in the Super Bowl to being curriculum in schools. Not a bunch of schools. I find the claim to be 80 cities to be dubious.
That's still not a lot, man. Like 80 school districts. That doesn't mean anything. Because one school district in the city of Houston means thousands of kids. among millions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at the smallest district, but like that doesn't. I mean, if you're an HISD, Houston Independent School District, you're getting a lot more kids. But Aldine, like I mean, sure, that's cool. Or Katy, you got some kids, sure, but
or
Spring. That doesn't.
You got 3 high schools.
Spring ISD. This is drop in the bucket, right?
Yeah.
So any major city in any state could have a number of school districts, or it's just the scale, the vagueness of the scale of what you just said leaves that to, and if you say it in the way that you say it, it leaves the interpretation that, oh, well, this is sweeping the nation. It's a sensation. This is the new wave.
Yeah.
But with any level of critical thought or analysis, it's like, well, this doesn't mean much.
Yeah. And so Republicans freaked out because they're trying to teach the kids.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Think of the children.
Oh, classic.
Yeah, because they're putting this in the schools, and if she said this is everywhere, then it's got to be everywhere. And so I cannot abide by you telling my kids that it's about 1619 and not 1776. And I don't know. I guess they believe that they're really trying to tell kids it's 1619 and not 1776, because some of these people who come up and do these public comment sections whenever this is being considered,
horrendous,
banging on the table, yelling and screaming, I'm not fit to have my child come home and tell me the founding of the country was 1619. How dare you? Yeah, how dare you even say that? And of course, that's why it's so scary. That's why it's such an issue. Also, it feels anti-white, as they say. They'll always every single white person likes to make an argument to me, and I guess nobody owns slaves, that it wasn't my people who owned slaves. And so don't come around talking about that, because it wasn't me.
She saw the marks on my shoulder. It wasn't me. Heard the words that I told her.
Classic.
Yeah, and
it
so
wasn't me.
Or I'm part Native American. I'm part of people who got oppressed.
Yes.
And that's right and left, because I'm looking at you, Elizabeth Warren. I'm looking at you. Yeah.
Oh, don't do it. Anyway.
But that's why the criticism is so like, that's why people freak out.
Okay. Here's what you're missing, Tony. Here's what you're missing. Okay. These white children need the truth. Everybody needs to know. You need to wake up, stay woke, and get with it. Okay. Black Power Fist is the only thing we're throwing up. We're not throwing up any more straight hands. Put that down. Bam. Fix it. All right.
Yeah.
No,
but
come on.
You can have black power and still know that 1776 is the founding of this country.
Well, okay, but see, here's the issue, and you've established this already. The snot-nosed, teary-eyed, sobbing, hysterical, charismatic Holy Ghost catching, running up and down the aisles at this Karen or Kyle or whoever it is wrong, because the changing of the narrative seeks to recenter slavery and the black struggle in the American narrative, but it does not seek to change. It does seek to change some understanding of facts, which we'll get to in a second. But the date of the Declaration of Independence was written on a date, and we know. That's just, it's not a question, right? Like, it happened. So it's just like, Barack Obama was president for 2 terms. We know, you can't. There's no way you can switch that around within reason.
Can I give? I'm going to give the argument that Karen gives in a way.
Light me up.
To where it's not coming from a Karen. It's not like ridiculous. But the argument,
moderate Karen.
Yeah, moderate Karen. America is a country that was one of the first countries where we try to give everybody to vote. Like, for real, try to do that.
Yes. Astounding. A miracle.
It's one of the first countries where we reject the ideal of the social system that had always been there. So, like, Britain now looks much different, but at the beginning
of caste and class, you mean?
Of caste and class, yes. Like,
which some would argue, de facto, not de jure, but continue.
Yeah. Britain in 1776 has a House of Lords, does not have a House of Commons at this point in time. The Irish, no, you cannot come up in here and vote. You do not get to say it in this matter, right? France at this point still has the nobility, and they chop their heads off at some point. But then they turn around and do the dictatorship portion. So it takes a while for
we establish in large part and lead the rest of the world into democracy, enlightenment, popular sovereignty, and all these wonderful modern state ideals that we live under now. So America live.
And the reason why 1776 should be the founding is because Black people themselves say it. Martin Luther King, even Malcolm X says it at some point. James Baldwin. Mm-hmm. I can always come back to you and say these inalienable rights, all men are created equal. If all men are created equal, you cannot segregate. You cannot let me use this water fountain. Even Branch Rickey, this is funny. Let me talk bad about the Yankees. When the Yankees called out Branch Rickey and be like, you cannot let that nigger play baseball. Mm-hmm. All men are created equal. Jackie Robinson get a chance to play. If he's good enough to play on the team, he's good enough to play on the team. And so it's the one thing we always come back to. It's the one thing we can all agree on, that we believe that all men are created equal. And it's why that should be the founding and not 1619.
What if I told you the 1619 project told you that? What if I told you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it agrees, but also trying to change the date. So that's the part I'm not trying to mess with. I'm not trying to mess with you changing the date.
I'm still confused, Tony, on how or why. Not how. I know how. That how is evident. Legislation's being written, culture wars being waged, but why over the implementation of a curriculum that the state of Texas, where we live, has taken preventative measures to, in more or less words, ban, the implementation of this program in the classroom, where it was not proposed. Because the state of Texas, just to give a little background, there are two states, maybe three, but largely two states that established the paradigm for curriculum for the rest of the country. America's weird. I don't know. I don't know why this is, but Texas, we're huge. We got a lot of money, and we do education in a very unique way, particularly conservative, particularly Southern. We like to deify and praise our heroes, our founders, regardless of what dirt they have done.
Remember the Alamo.
Remember it, boy. You must. Yeah. And I do. I know the characters. I know everybody who was there and how long they were there and they died. And
the line that was drawn.
Just say the line of saying. I mean, they don't play about that. I know that stuff. And I found that class immensely boring, but I remember. So, and then we got California, and one that's less of a leader, and it doesn't establish necessarily what everybody else will follow, but it does stick out. New York, New York, everything about New York is weird and sticks out. And so they do introduce new ideas that other people will test out. But New York and California, mainly California, established the more liberal trends.
Yes.
Where we're, let's read Zora Neale Hurston.
Yeah.
So you got the two trendsetters, the two standard bearers. And so in California, there are a few places adopting 1619 curriculum. Wouldn't be me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I rock with it as a thought experiment, and I believe in Afro-American history in the classroom, but not necessarily that. And everybody's got the choice. I'm not mad at you. But Texas, I wasn't worried about it. Wasn't sweating it. In fact, in 2019, we had just established the main reason of the Civil War as slavery. When I was taught, they were neck and neck. And when my parents were taught, it was states' rights over slavery. So this is the gulf between us. Why in the world would Texas be like, no, I'm afraid they're coming. This is the invasion.
Okay, so part of it is that there's so many Californians moving here. So that's one
true
thread of it. The other part being Austin. Austin has been like the not the wild child, like the one child.
It's the wild child, yeah.
Yeah, the wild
it's
child. It's
unlike the others.
Yeah, and they're like, the state capital is right there. And so in front of them, in blatant defiance, they have been trying to do things to make things wild, Also, I will say this, the 2020 racial reckoning scared like really scared the Republicans, and so they were like,
even though it didn't take place in the state.
no, there were just a couple like in Texas. In Dallas, they pulled up on those protesters and immediately started hitting them with them rubber bullets.
Protests, though, that's the crazy part.
Yeah,
we did not do a Minneapolis.
No, yeah,
but the cops was acting like like we were really threatening that. Of course we weren't. Texans don't act like that.
Yeah,
or Southerners in general pretty much don't act like that. But
some knuckleheads jumped on a bus in Houston, and that's about it.
Yeah,
but they were like, not here, not in my house. And also, it's a lot of these people who are in Texas and legislature, they want to be on a national stage, right? And so the Republican bench is big, as like the bench for like getting on to seats. And with the president still being with Donald Trump still being in the mix, is very weird exactly how that bench is going to work. But I can get on Fox News if I introduce a bill to get rid of 1619. Greg Abbott can do interviews all day long.
He's been in the national headlines for a minute now.
Yeah. And so if I want to do a presidential bid in 2004, this is the perfect way to do it. And so 2024. Yeah. That's the perfect way to do it. And so I guess if you were to ask Greg Abbott, he'll say this because this is part of there's a socialist movement overtaking the country, and it begins in the schools, and therefore we must protect our children against the socialist agenda of teaching them how America is not great. Yeah. All of that is BS. None of that is not what 619 Project's trying to do. Yeah.
And that's made really clear by the president's response, which is patriotic education, the 1776 Project, which
not the president, the governor.
No, the president.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, he did. Yes. Donald Trump, in his dying breath, his death throes in the Oval Office, besides, of course, the insurrection, the death throes of his administration was to establish was to commission the 1776 Project, was astoundingly even less academic because he hired, commissioned more people to work on it.
Yeah.
But people with less bona fides than the New York Times did, who did less research, who are more wrong, and only in the name of a self-flagellating patriotism.
Yeah.
So that, if you really want whittle it down, is the rub. And of course, we did the same thing in Texas.
There is one argument, I think, as we close here, that is anti-Black. And that's an interesting argument.
Wait, who's anti-Black?
So the 619 Project is anti-Black. And so
lay it out.
Bob Woodson, he's from Atlanta, and he does a lot of work in the inner cities. And so his argument is that it's anti-Black because it teaches, but everything's wrong in the country, everything that happens around them, the crack epidemic, living in projects, living in the cities, the wealth gap, all that is an external factor. There's no internal factors here. It's all external. And therefore, everything that's bad that's ever happened to us is external. And therefore, can you do anything to fix an internal process if the external process is the American machine? And so your response to 1619 Project has to be to burn it all to the ground. Because you can't look at capitalism. If it's capitalism built off of slavery, it cannot function anymore because it cannot be fixed if its foundation is that. The founding of this country is 1619 and 1776, there's words on the paper which we're never going to believe in. Then why should I still mess with this system anymore? Burn it to the ground. And also, how can I thrive as a Black person? How can I do anything to be successful truly in a country to where I'm only going to be ever seen as something other?
Okay. So I hear that, and I see how you could get that from the project.
He's also old Black man, so he's old. He's older.
Like, I mean, no, I was like, I don't think it's foolish. I just think it's a particularly nihilistic and pessimistic take. But what's important to establish is that if you're teaching things in high school, we talked about this on a different podcast, but teaching things in high school, I'm not going to get the breadth of the material.
Yeah.
By and large, most of the students are going to come with the Cliff's Notes version. So regardless of how detailed and nuanced that project may be, I can leave with that narrative. I can also leave with America made these promises. I'm trying to get them there because they're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Hopeful takeaway where there's work to be done, or you can, have pessimism, nihilism, and say it must be done away with, baby out with the bathwater type narrative. Like I said, I'm not a fan. If I ruled the world, Lauryn Hill and Nas,
Yes.
yeah, I wouldn't adopt it. There's some things to learn, and maybe we can read an essay. Some of the essays are pretty cool, but forming a curriculum off of it, I wouldn't. But closing thought, maybe we should stop buying into and playing into the culture war weaponry, because that's what this has turned into.
Yeah.
It was a interesting project, quadricentennial of Afro-Americans, not unlike Roots, a good time, a thinker. We thought about it. And the criticism, I like the criticism. I like the praise. We thought about it. It was a good time. It's now 2021. We're moving on. But because of the race reckoning and because of the ensuing culture war that follows, we find ourselves still discussing this. We didn't do a podcast on this initially because among other things, I figured that this is, a flash in the pan, but it endures because of the culture war.
Joe Biden is boring as a president, so what else am I going to talk about?
Yeah.
Because right now they're doing the actual government and trying to hash out an infrastructure bill. And at that point, it becomes kind of boring to talk about because, hey, today John Mnuchin met with some people, and we're going to see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, we're doing actual diplomacy. Our president and vice president are flying around the world trying to repair broken bonds and make sure our enemies know that we're not playing around. And that's kind of universally agreed upon. Maybe we don't let Russia and China and Korea push us around.
Yeah, and so that becomes boring. So I got to talk about something. On Fox News, I got 24 hours with the stuff to fill in. Let's do 1619 Project again. Everybody hates that, don't they? Let's talk about it.
Let's call Greg Abbott up, see what he's talking about.
Yeah, and so it became it's TV filler. I mean, every podcast I listen to, The Argument, The Weeds, The Daily, the Washington Post podcast, all of them have done CRT or 1619 Project because we got to talk about it at some point because everybody's talking about it. And so if we don't, on a last point, it feels like sex in high school. Everybody keeps saying they're doing it. Everybody keeps talking about it.
That's hilarious. Excellent. That's excellent.
And so at some point, I'm Boy Meets World, and I can't be the only one.
It's all the rage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, who hasn't done it yet? Yeah,
I gotta have an opinion on it.
Yes. And can y'all not though? Can y'all wait till you're older?
Come on now.
And be responsible.
There's a place and time for that.
Yeah.
And now it's not it.
Yeah. But anyway, my name is Clarence Brown.
Irvin Bryant.
Peace.
Do it to him, Dee.